Hello, good evening, Mr. X and Mr. Romo's class, and to my class. This is getting to you in the afternoon as well, because I'm making a video. I just realized it was missing for today's level 4 word, English 4 word. So the word is conform. Conform is a verb, and accent on the second syllable, conform. And it means to behave and think in the same way as most other people in a group or society. So there's one big thing I want you to notice with this word. One big thing, and the one big thing is so it's a verb, not an adjective. And if you look at the Spanish translation, it does not say conforme. Ni conforme ni estar conforme. So that is the biggest problem with this word, because it looks like conforme, so you think that's what it means, but it doesn't. So the Spanish translation, ajustarse, adecuarse. And it's like to behave and think in the same way as most of the other people in a group. So let's look at my notes here. I said conform is a verb, not an adjective. So it is not estar conforme. And if you think about how it's different from that, so estar conforme, as far as I understand it in Spanish, is kind of like it's passive. It's like just following. There's some similarities because it's what should I say? It's, if you say estar conforme, that's como, también puede ser como estar como los otros, como la otra gente, but it's more passive than conform in English. So conform in English is an action. It means actively, like choosing to be the same, do the same as everybody else. And I think estar conforme in Spanish is more passive. It's more like, like in English, there's an expression, go with the flow. I don't know if you've heard that, but that's the idea, I think, to translate estar conforme, something like that. Or it's, just like to be passive, pasivo, to let things happen. Versus conform in English is not that. Conform is an action, and it's actively being or doing the same as everyone else. So, and other things to note, it has a negative connotation. So the idea is you're doing the same as everybody else, and that's usually bad. That's usually a bad thing. The idea is that doing the same as everyone else, when this may not be a good idea. So let's look at I have two sentence examples. So the one to copy is here, and it says, and as always, the ones that we copy are about literature. Books. So it says, in the Soviet Union, which used to be the name for Russia, la Unión Soviética, the country that was Russia, plus some other countries that Russia was controlling pretty much, and they were all communist countries. They had a communist dictatorship, which you should have learned about in your history class, what communism is. So in the Soviet Union, the government required all literature to conform with communist ideology. So that means that you could not write a book as an author in the Soviet Union if it was not following the same way of behavior and thought as it was shown in communist ideology. Remember, ideology is a word you had a few days ago. It means a system of ideas. So you have the system of ideas. Communism, for example, workers are great. Workers, los obreros, are the heroes. So if you wrote a book in which a worker was bad and a boss was good, for example, the government in Russia, in the Soviet Union, would say, you cannot publish that book because it does not conform. It's not the same. The behavior that you show in writing this book, that behavior, your behavior in writing this book does not go along with, is not the same as communist ideology. We want everyone to conform, to do the same thing. And so as you can guess from this, I don't like the idea of a communist dictatorship myself. So I'm using the sentence in this way, in a negative way. It's usually most often used for that. And another sentence is, some teenagers do drugs just to conform, although they know it is bad. So that's another sentence down here at the bottom. Similar thing, it's like people do something just because they choose to do it, just because everybody else is doing it. But in fact, it's not a good thing. And here, it's not a good thing it might be better to be a more creative writer and write what you want, be an artist. But in the Soviet Union, you had to only write stories about communist ideology where the workers were always the hero and the capitalists were always evil and things like that. Let's talk about this part. So we said already Spanish translations, ajustarse, adecuarse, word families, conformist, conformity, nonconformist, and nonconformity. And I didn't write the parts of speech in here yet. Conformist is a noun. It's a person, a person. Nonconformist is also a noun. So a conformist is a person who conforms, who chooses to be like everybody else. Nonconformist chooses not to be like everybody else. It's the opposite. It's like deliberately, I want to be different. I am not like everybody else. I'm my own person. I'm different from everybody else. Conformity is a noun. Iti, remember, is like edad in Spanish. And it's a noun and it's saying conformity is the state of conforming. Nonconformity is the opposite of that. The state, el estado of not conforming. Synonyms, accommodate, comply, or fit in. Fit in is like with a group of people. Antonyms, rebel, ser rebelde, stand out or disagree with. Okay, so I'll step back. Oh, and one more thing is how you use it in a sentence. So you can use it by itself. So down here we said just to conform, no other words. You can also use it with the word with, or you can use it with the word to. Those are the words we usually use with the word conform in a sentence. Okay, thank you very much. Thanks for watching. Have a good evening.